listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
And we are live from America and just outside the Matrix, or currently way, way, way outside the Matrix. It is time once again for the show that brings you the truth behind the headlines. I'm investigative journalist Lee Stranahan. This is The Backstory. So I got to say, we're waiting for Carmine because it is Carmine Monday, and therefore Carmine Sabia will be joining us later on. And I'm going to stall a little bit and see if we get Carmine on soon, Rod. And do you know why?
Tell us.
Because of our second guest, Rod. That's why. You did a fantastic job. Diliana Gaytandzhieva. And by the way, I did get through that pronunciation correctly. Gaytandzhieva. I checked it with her. That is correct. But if it's one of those names where I can screw myself up by looking at it. Look at her name, Rod. Right?
Yeah, you gotta go slow. You gotta go slow.
Right, you gotta go slow. It's Gaytandzhieva. But here's why. Also, can you see the video feed, Rod? Rod, do you currently have a
no, not at the moment.
Okay, but you've seen Diliana before. So I can say this. And I don't say this with there's nothing wrong with this. Diliana's a brilliant investigative journalist who's covering a hugely important story, and she's very easy on the eyes. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, Diliana's she's a very beautiful woman.
She's a very beautiful woman. That's one way to put it. And I know Carmine, who's an American journalist and a patriot, and he appreciates a good-looking woman. I think that's fair to say about Carmine. Is that fair from your experience with Carmine, Rod?
I think he fits the typical Italian stereotype, so I think so.
Yes, so there we go. So I put in a word for Carmine with Diliana. I pre-taped an interview with Diliana, and I mentioned Carmine. And I just want to make Carmine know that I'm his wingman here. I hooked him up to a certain extent. I played him up as a big American journalist. And so if something happens, I'm just saying that I want my credit as a matchmaker. Is that okay, Rod? Can I get that?
Yeah, you should. You should get that credit.
Now, I'll tell you who I'm not matchmaking, and nothing wrong with him because I love him as a guest. But Ian Schilling, if Carmine ends up with Ian Schilling, something's gone horribly wrong for both Carmine and Ian, I think. And I'm not saying, it's not in the plan. And I'm not judging. Do whatever you guys want to do. We have a don't ask, don't tell policy here at the Backstory. But that would be a shock, I think, everybody. Do you agree with that one, Rod? Everyone would be a little surprised. They'd be looking down and going, what are we doing here? Right?
Gas is getting high, so, people got to get together and put their money together, so.
There we go. But Ian Schilling is joining us in the first hour. When you get Carmine could come on. Because I do want his... I'll put it like this. I was preparing the graphic for Diliana today. And if you do an image search on her name, it's not bad. I didn't see a bad picture of her. I didn't see any pictures of her like where she's just woken up or she's at Walmart with one of those hair things. You know what I'm talking about. They look like ice packs, whatever the people wear. Walking around in a robe and slippers. I didn't see that at all. Diliana, all you have to do is look her up, and they're all good pictures. She's very photogenic. I'll say that. And we're taking your calls, 202-521-1320. This is The Backstory. Now, let me ask you, Rod, since we're waiting for Carmine still, Let me ask you, how was your weekend?
My weekend was cool. It was just relaxing. You know, the weather was getting a little warmer. It's in like the 60s, and today it's kind of in the 70s. So, you know, just chilling.
Okay, rub it in, you bastard. Because here's the thing: we had some horrific weather on Saturday night, in particular. It was. I'm going to say two words that aren't good together: freezing rain. You know what I'm talking about? That's not good.
Right. No, not at all.
It's not even snow. It's rain, but it's freezing. And so we had some of that. And I typically stay inside anyway because I've admitted it before, and I'll say this. I'm obsessed on this war, trying to track what's going on. And it's very difficult. Did you see the video? I'm going to talk about this for a second. Did you see the video? There were guys doing a newscast, and there's all these bodies laying in the background. And one of the bodies starts moving and recovering himself up. Did you see that one, Rod?
No, I didn't see that one.
It's very funny. But here's what happened. So there's footage up there, and somebody stuck a Ukrainian lower third on it, like it was about Ukraine. And then the newscaster was wearing a mask. This is one of the problems of masks no one talks about. So they were able to dub in an NBC report about Ukraine, and you couldn't tell that that's what the newscaster wasn't talking about. That was a fake video. I want to thank Eric Soderstrom, who I've known for about 10 years, pointed that out to me. The footage is still very funny, but it was from a German die-in protest a few years ago about the climate or something. And somebody faked it to make it look like Ukrainians were faking their deaths. You follow me, Rod?
And then they were showing that here, or that it was just on social media?
It was on social media.
Oh, okay.
But whoever did that, and I'm going to talk about free speech. We got Ingrid on the line. I'll talk about free speech for a second. And I've said it before. What you're getting is Russia shutting down you hear TikTok shut down and Facebook in Russia?
Yeah, I saw the corporate media here was talking about Russia banning media and social media. So yeah, I saw it.
And as a free speech person, I don't like that in some senses. But I will say this. The other thing that they did is they passed a law that if you're lying, and I'll put it like this, and whoever did this video and put the Ukrainian lower third in and dubbed in a voice, you should go to jail. And I say that as a free speech person. You should go to jail. You're a liar. And when you deliberately fake footage, and I've talked about it before, I saw some fake footage where somebody had taken Adobe After Effects or some visual effects program and made it look like Ukrainians had captured a Russian tank. In fact, it was a Ukrainian tank. They're just sitting on it. I think whoever did that should go to jail. If you're out there deliberately faking footage, that's not free speech. And what happened was when Russia passed that law that it's against the law to post things that are fake, that's when the BBC and Bloomberg and all these other things shut down, because they knew you lying mother hubbards in the mainstream media, you're no better than anybody. And I'm saying this, I don't care who's doing it for what side. If you're out there deliberately putting up something fake, that you've lost any freedom of speech privilege. And I understand why Russia put that law in, because Ukraine has been worse. You must have seen all the stuff about the nuclear power plant. And Ukraine was saying things that were blatantly false. And what they were trying to do was to get a new no-fly zone over Ukraine. You saw that, right, Rod?
Oh yeah, so that was pretty crazy how they tried to rile that up. I mean, they were pretty much saying that the plant was going to blow up and all this other stuff.
Right.
And then Zelensky was I mean, he's an actor, so he was on at the podium or wherever he's at. Nobody knows where he's at, just screaming like, "Why won't you help us?" it's just crazy.
Right. That's why they brought him in here. And let me also say this, because we've heard a lot about how there can't be Nazis in Ukraine because Zelensky's Jewish. Let me ask you this: we got to get Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on. How many of Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro, by the way, a Jew, right, a practicing, observant Jew, how many of his kids do you think were baptized, Rod? What's your guess?
0.
Right, because that's not something you do. If you're an observant Jew, you don't have your kids baptized, right? My understanding is that Zelensky's kid is baptized, his wife is baptized. And so they're Christian, and that somebody said, I think Zelensky's Christian. So let me put it in a weird way no one's putting it in. Is Zelensky hiding his Christianity in order so he's got the narrative, hey, we can't have Nazis because I'm Jewish, but he's actually Christian and he's hiding it? Because if he had his kid, I'll put it like this, and under Judaic law, by the way, that kid, if your mother is Christian, you're not Jewish under my understanding of Judaic law, because it's on the mother's side. Does that make sense? If your mother's Jewish, if your mother, is observant, let's say, then you're Jewish. But if your father's Christian, mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. But under Judaic law, my understanding is that if your mother's Christian, then you're not Jewish. And apparently Zelensky's kid's mother is Christian. That's what I'm seeing. And again, I hope no one's faking that one. But would it be weird if Zelensky were a secret Christian, Rod?
I mean, at this point, no, it wouldn't seem weird. But if you told me that a couple months ago, then yeah. But at this point, no, it would make sense, actually.
Right. And unfortunately, Rod, you've entered cynical OD zone, because what you're saying is not that it's not disgusting, right? It is disgusting. But you're just come to expect disgusting. Is that what you're saying, Rod?
Oh, of course, especially in this situation and everything that's going on. I don't know if you saw last week, PBS was interviewing a guy. Right behind him was a Stepan Bandera portrait.
I did. I saw that. It was amazing. Yes.
And they blurred it out. They had to blur it out.
But here's the thing. Stepan Bandera has, and any Banderites out there listening, don't get more pissed at me. He has an unusually shaped head. You know what I'm getting at, Rod?
It's small. I would say like small, kind of.
And very distinctive. You can squint and go, you could pick Bandera out of a lineup squinting, correct? Just looking at his head, right?
Yeah, he looks like, it's just smaller than an average head. That's all I can say.
Now, I'll tell you. So, in other words, I'm in favor of free speech. I'm not in favor of lying. And I think it needs to be called out. And that's why having Diliana on was such a great move on your part today, Rod. Getting Diliana on was so good, because I want to talk about these accusations that the Russian government is making that there are biolabs in Ukraine that the U.S. is funding. And we talk about that. Carmine Sabia is on with us now on a Carmine Monday. Hey, Carmine, how you doing?
Hey, my brother. So I had to, I was, just as you called me, I get called for I'm getting a CPAP machine. And so I'm on the phone with them finishing that, and I'm like, So I was trying to finish that up real quick, and now I'm here.
So do you know who Diliana Gaytandzhieva is? Does that ring a bell, Carmine?
No, not at all.
Okay, I have her picture up on, and Ingrid Jen, I'll get to you in 1 second. I've got her picture up. She's a pre-taped guest. but I'm setting you up here, Carmine. I hooked you up. Go see if you can find a picture of Diliana.
You're going to have to spell that, homie.
What's that?
You're going to have to spell that.
Okay, if you look at the video feed right now, I got a picture of her up. Diliana is D-I...
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, ready? The second part's long. Dilyana is Diliana. Then it's Gayt.
Got it.
A-N-D. Right, yes. Okay, now take a look at images. Go to an image search and take a look. And you like a beautiful woman. Is that fair to say, Carmine?
You know what? I don't hate them.
Right.
I don't hate beautiful women.
So do you hate... So from what you're seeing with Diliana, do you hate her?
I do not hate her, no.
That's a beautiful woman, is it not?
Very much so, yes.
Right. And you see what I'm saying? I love women in general, but she's a knockout. And she's an investigative journalist, Carmine, who's been investigating bioweapons labs in Eastern Europe funded by the government. And I hooked you.
I hooked date, bro.
Wait, no, better than a date, Carmine. Maybe not better, but equally good. She's agreed to be interviewed by you for whatever publication you want to write for about the work she's done. Does that make sense?
Oh, well, that's freaking awesome, man.
Because she's not only easy on the eyes, but she's literally a brilliant and brave investigative journalist who the proof she has, and she'll show it to you. The proof I'm talking about. Get your mind out of the gutter, Carmine. But she'll show it to you. Okay, but I know what you're thinking.
Stop picking on me. I was going to say something, but you said stop thinking first. So.
Okay, so she'll show you the proof. Do you know where she has the proof that the U.S. government has been funding biolabs in Eastern Europe?
I mean, I'm not surprised by this at all. If I should be shocked, I'm not. I assumed they were funding all over the world.
Right. And here's the thing. If she said, I've got the proof, I got it from Russia, on the evidentiary scale, you'd rate that maybe a 5 out of 10. Like, it might be true, it might not be, but it's a little biased. But she's got it from the U.S. government itself, Carmine. From sites that you can go look. That's a 10, right?
That would be a 10, yes.
Now, if I told you then that the U.S. started pulling that information down, but you can still find it, when they start to pull it down, that makes it an 11 to me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so anyway, I pre-taped an interview because she's in Bulgaria and it's very late there. But I mentioned you specifically. I said, my co-host, Carmine Sabia, he writes for a number of U.S. publications. And here's the other thing. As a journalist, if she didn't want to talk to anybody, that also is suspect. Don't you agree?
That would be sus, yes.
But if she's like, sure, I'll talk to Carmine.
That's freaking awesome.
So anyway, now I'm not saying this is not going to lead somewhere, Carmine, because who knows? she could be so smitten with you.
Looks like she might be about 20 years younger than me, bro.
Could be. Bulgarian don't crack. I don't know what I mean by that. But anyway, 202-521-1320. Let's go to Ingrid, then we'll go to Jen. Ingrid, what is on your mind?
Well, hey, odd that you're talking about women because women, but first, quickly, a very good source. I don't know if you're familiar with...
No, wait, Ingrid, is it honestly odd I'm talking about women? I don't think it is, but go ahead.
I don't know if you know of Andrei Martyanov. He has a blog called Reminiscence of the Future, and he also... Okay,
no, wait. Ingrid, let me stop you again. Rod, are you there? Is Rod on?
Rod.
Okay, Rod. Rod, unmute for a second. Ron, did I mention this man to you literally about 3 hours ago?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that again. It's good that Ingrid brought that up because I forgot exactly what the title of his blog was.
Right. So, Ingrid, I'm just saying you're onto something because I literally brought this up to Rod. I was having Rod confirm it just a few hours ago because a couple of people have mentioned, but go ahead, Ingrid.
Well, Andre is hardcore nuts and bolts fact. Okay, but what I called about was my personal gripe. As you know, I've been going on a lot of these Zooms with peace groups and whatnot, and inevitably someone will write in the chat, everything would be better if women had a more prominent place in making decisions. And I inevitably put in the chat, really, don't forget Hillary Clinton, Fiona Hill, Wendy Sherman,
Angela Merkel,
Victoria Nuland, all women, all despicable,
my second wife,
hideous pre-people.
Oh.
So this is just my gripe, the women thing.
Yeah,
You want to hear a funny story, Ingrid?
What?
You want to
Go
hear
ahead,
a funny
Carmine.
story? My mom, may she rest in peace, I used to talk to her about, when Hillary Clinton was running. My mother was a staunch Republican. But I said, someday maybe they'll be the first woman president and it'll be a Republican. My mother, who was a realtor, a real estate investor, a strong, independent woman, she goes, no, women don't belong in that role. Stay home and bake cookies. That's my mother. So I always laughed at that. She never wanted to see a woman president ever. She said, we're too emotional.
No, and that opinion is popular. Let's see. Great call, Ingrid. Thanks for the call. 202-521-1320. Let's see if this, Jen is not calling about that because she couldn't have known. But Jen, what do you think? You're a woman. What do you think about women in politics? Do you think everything in the world would be better if women just ran things? Jen?
I think it's tough to say. There are some examples of women, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, who's a good leader. And I think that women do deal with conflicts differently. We're a little softer in a lot of ways because we don't have all that testosterone. We don't tend to solve conflicts with violence. And so I do think there would be less war if women were in different roles. So I don't know if that bears or not. I really don't. But that's just, yes.
Do you believe Hillary Clinton was anti-war?
No, I'm not. Listen, I'm talking in generalities. Hillary Clinton doesn't fit into the category of female. In my mind, she's more of like a demonically possessed being. I don't know another way to put it. That's not a female to me. I'm talking about just women.
Well, no. Let me just disagree there slightly. That is a demonically possessed being does apply maybe once a month to women of a certain age.
Oh, bro.
No.
You know what? You're right. He's right. But I will tell you that I've met some men that have similar issues. So it goes both ways. I mean, it does. I've been around men who I'm like, I don't want to say because, radio, but Eminem has a line in a song about it. And, men do the same thing. They get into their little moods and stuff and go into their man cave. So, everybody's got their hormonal issues. So barring that, I think it's in general.
But see, the advantage of men, and I do think we have one, Jen, is it's constant. We're constantly jerks. Women, once a month.
No, I don't agree with that either. I think men are awesome. I'm not with this.
Don't ruin my jokes here, Jen. Don't ruin my punchlines by bringing reality into things. You should have learned that by now. Now, Jen, but that's not what you called about. What did you call about?
No, so I'm calling about something about the Jewishness of the Ukrainian president and the prime minister, actually, of Ukraine. When, the country itself has, they claim, 0.4% Jewish and largely Ukraine.
Right.
Eastern Orthodox Christian nation. But what's really interesting is, he himself identifies as Jewish, and there's a lot of communities within Ukraine. There's sacred pilgrimages made by Hasidic Jews that go to Ukraine. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but he's quoted in an article. One of these places is called Uman, and in an article he says that his government, this is President Zelensky in 2020, his government was hoping to construct a, quote, little Jerusalem in Amman that would include a historical museum, big park, reconstructing the current synagogue. We want to make it an authentic town, and we're going to call it Little Jerusalem. So it's really interesting when you look into it. They also have in Ukraine the largest Jewish community center in all of Europe. And you should take a look at it online because it's absolutely incredibly huge. However, Russia did compete with them recently. Take a look at Russia's. That's only for the very elite Jewish in Russia, though. So I don't think either nation has as much Nazism as anybody's claiming. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. If you start to really dig into this stuff, you can find it on both sides. So that's my comment.
But what you won't find is the Nazis integrated into the military. The Azov Battalion is an official battalion in the military. What say you about that, Jen?
Well, I don't know if they have voting capabilities, if they're integrated into the government, but that would be really odd for them to vote in a prime minister and a president that is Jewish if they're anti-Semitic.
Not if they were put out by a Zionist like Kolomoisky, who is also claims the Jewish background. Kolomoisky is the one, there's not a question in the world about this. He's the one who funded the Azov Battalion. So would you agree the Azov Battalion is pretty Nazi?
You know what else Kolomoisky funded? The Jewish Community Center in Ukraine. I'm not.
No, right. But, and what I'm saying is, you know, F. Scott Fitzgerald said the sign of a first-rate mind is the ability to hold two contradictory ideas in your head at once. And I'm with F. Scott on that.
Higher.
I think both are true. Kolomoisky clearly, go look into it. You'll see he funded Azov. He funded the Nazi battalion.
No, I believe you. Here's my thing. I start to think, okay, when I look at what's happening, it's like World War II, where all the Nazi and the anti-Semitic it gets obfuscated. It's like nobody, because look, after World War II, where did the Nazis go? They integrated into Europe. They're in our governments right now, and they were the bad guys, right? But why are they here? We didn't. What happened in the Nuremberg trials? They weren't tried. So, like, my mind is this: the Nazis are like, they're just disguised as other people, other groups. It's all just a big game to these people, pitting against us and that. And my big theory is that Israel wants another military base, and it's going to be in Ukraine, around Crimea or Amman or something like that. That's the end goal. That's my take.
Now, Jen, I want to ask you one more question before you go. And Owl Killer, hold on. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Everyone, I'm calling an audible on this. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to ask Jen a question, then go to a break. When we come back, we'll bring on Ian Schilling. Then we'll put Owl Killer on with Ian and Carmine, and that's the warning. And I won't bring Rod on.
Before that, right after the break, Lee, I have a heck of a story I got to tell you about something that happened.
Okay, I want to hear that too. But let me bring on Ian and have you tell the story with Ian on, because Ian is, we'll use him as an auxiliary co-host. So that's the plan. Okay. Well, here's a question I have for you, Jen. And I know you have a Ukrainian background. I think, and I've said this before and I've said it publicly, I've been critical in the past of Russia for being bad at PR.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you, and here's what I mean. And in a sense, I think it's a virtue, because our PR in America is off the hook crazy. But let me say what I have not seen, and let me just get your opinion as a Ukrainian American. Do you know what I haven't seen? I haven't seen, like, someone who's Ukrainian Russian speaking, Ukrainian ethnically Russian, from the Donbass, out on TV saying, let me tell you my story. Here's what happened to me, right? And I know there's lots of those women, and I'm sure they're very photogenic, right?
I agree.
You know something about how beautiful Ukrainian women are, right, Jen? Being one. But,
yes, I do.
But they are.
So if they had a woman Well, and I'm saying a woman because I think it would be better saying, I grew up in Donbass. Here's my story. Have you seen that at all?
It would be very helpful. No. No. I don't see any what I would call credible or real news when I watch the news. It's none of it. I can't trust any of it. And so, no, I haven't seen that at all. And that would be very helpful. And so, but I think they do it purposely because they really just don't want us to they don't want us to see what's actually happening. So that's my opinion.
Well, part of it, though, is, and here's the part I'm going to blame Russia for. Russia doesn't have that woman out there. What I'm saying is they'd have to go dig that up. What we do in America is we supply the narrative, all signed, sealed, delivered, wrapped in a bow. You follow me? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying,
I agree.
I think if this is why I say I'm critical of Russia. In a sense, I think it's kind of good because they basically, in a sense, they're going, we don't want to play that game. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with that. I think it's smart, and I think Putin is much smarter at this game of war and chess game than pretty much anybody else that's playing because he's smart to be quiet. It's better to be quiet than yap and yap and yap because you just look like you're trying to hide something in life. No, I think it's better for him to just be quiet. When you're not when you're not in the wrong like that, there's no reason to run around and have a bunch of yapping dogs. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, but if you had somebody, I think, telling their own story, I do think that would be compelling. So we'll see what happens. Jen, great call. Thanks so much. Jen, take care. I'll talk to you later, probably. And we'll take a short break. When we come back, Ian Schilling is joining us. It is Carmine Monday. Carmine Sabia is on the line, and he's got a story to tell. And Owl Killer will get to you right after this here on The Backstory.
Want to talk? Get in touch with us at radio@sputniknews.com.
So, Sean, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, Bob, that's easy. I want to talk about the need to stop the development of self-driving cars.
Again, Sean, you're driving me nuts. I think the self-driving car thing's already out of the gate.
No. It's never too late. See, now the leading experts in the field, I mean, just pick one, whichever one, leading experts have repeatedly warned us about the dangers of artificial intelligence. Look, I'm telling you, man, we have to stop the robots by any means necessary.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
Tune into our show By Any Means Necessary daily from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Radio Sputnik. And don't forget to call in at 3:20 p.m. to our studio number 202-521-1320.
And if you miss us live, check us out on SputnikNews.com, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date on the latest political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us.
Feeling kind of blue, but maybe also kind of red, and kind of purple, and kind of alone? You've got a friend on Radio Sputnik. Tune into Political Misfits from 12 to 2 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, for news, politics, and culture without the two-party bias. Catch us daily on 105.5 in Washington, D.C., or 102.9 or 104.7 in Kansas City. Or find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your news.
Are you bored? Are you lonely? Do you need a hug? Well, we can't give you that, but we can keep you up to date on Radio Sputnik.
And we are back. 105.5 FM, AM 1390 is where you can hear us. And the Washington Post, apparently the Washington Post ran another story. They're freaking out. Apparently the Washington Post doesn't like the fact we're on AM, FM, but we like the fact we're on there. And they reran a picture of me when I was a co-host of Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan, where Garland and I are both looking very dapper, I'll say. They reran that picture. But thank you, Washington Post, for at least having a good picture of me. 202-521-1320 is the number if you want to call. We'll get to Owl Killer in 1 second. But I want to bring on our guest this half hour, all the way from the UK, one of our favorite guests, because he's knowledgeable and down to earth, the great Ian Schilling. Hey, Ian, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
So, Ian, let me introduce you to another guy who's knowledgeable and down to earth. Our co-host today is Carmine Sabia. Carmine, Ian Carmine.
Hi, Carmine.
I believe we met. Have we not met, Ian?
We were on the same show a little while ago, yes.
Okay,
we were.
See, I can't remember which host. It's like Garanimals sometimes, where I can't remember which host was with which guests, which tops are with which bottoms if it was pajamas.
I always remember an Englishman because I have a few friends in the UK, and I always say I find it funny for a company that loves tea so much that when you say your words, you eliminate the tea. You know, like if an Englishman is counting, they'll say 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, do the British drop T's?
They do.
Well,
Ian?
Some of them do. But that's like every other country. They've all got different accents. There's different parts of England that got different accents.
One thing I learned because of my time in wrestling, I have a lot of friends from the UK. And the one thing I learned is England is a lot like Italy, where every house has its own accent, basically. Every house has its own dialect.
Every city in every region has their own accents, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, America has different accents in different states, doesn't it? So it's the same.
For a country that's so small, there's so many different accents. It's crazy. It's like...
Oh, yeah, and some of them are terrible, yes. You can't understand what they're saying, yes.
I can't understand Cockney for nothing. So here's my story, and I can't be very specific, and I can't tell a lot of details. You'll understand why when I tell it. Last week or this weekend, I wrote a story, and I stay pretty neutral on the war, right? Just try and present, here's the facts, here's what we know, right? But a lot of the facts and a lot of the sources are, you can't help, but they lean pro-Ukrainian, right? And so I wrote a piece this week about another person who was giving their opinion, who was a military person, and he was leaning more on the, hey, Russia's got some valid points here. And I got a call after that story got published from somebody very high up who told me that I better not do that again. So, and it was somebody pretty high up and told me to stop that. And I was like, wow. And that's the first time I've been told things in the past. Lee, as a journalist, you're asked to keep certain things secret for national security purposes. And so I've been told things in the past. That was the first time I'd ever been told about somebody's opinion that I probably shouldn't write that. It was the first time I'd ever been told that. It kind of got me by surprise. So.
Well, no, and I'm very empathetic with that because when I was the lead investigative reporter at Breitbart, after I left, I sat down and made a list of about 20 stories they killed. But Ian, are you shocked that Carmine's getting pressure not to say anything that might be perceived? By the way, was the person talking Colonel Doug McGregor by any chance, Carmine?
I can't say, but
not who told you to be quiet, but did you see McGregor on Fox?
I did.
So McGregor's the guy who came out, and he was very, I thought, realistic, and it ends up being a little pro-Russian in that it's not anti-Russian. He's saying he thinks it's going to end soon. But
and that's the thing. I didn't think it was anti-Russian. I didn't think it was anti-Russian or anti-Ukrainian or pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian. I thought it was just, here's a series of factual things that I believe. And,
the propaganda and the censorship has just gone through the roof. And it is ridiculous the amount of propaganda that is going on. I mean, it's just, I mean, they haven't just turned the dial up to 11. It's about 211 now, isn't it? That's ridiculous.
No, it is. And we were talking about some of the propaganda is downright dangerous. Like Zelensky out there lying about the nuclear power plant, trying to get a no-fly zone. That would mean Russian planes shot down by NATO. It also seems like they're trying to push. Ian, do you get a sense the U.S. is trying to push the EU into a war? Do you get that sense, sir?
They are, aren't they? They're trying to get Eastern European countries to send old Russian planes to Ukraine that the Ukrainian pilots can fly. So Poland and Bulgaria and countries like that have got old MiG-29s that the Ukrainian pilots already know how to fly, and the US is trying to get them to send them to Ukraine. And then saying, well, if you send your MiG-29s to Ukraine, then we'll supply you with F-16s to replace them or something. This is what Blinken is trying to do. So they are trying. I mean, America is going to fight against Russia in Ukraine to the last Ukrainian. They couldn't care less how many millions of Ukrainians die. They couldn't care less. They're going to pump in weapons. The latest plot, Whitney Webb wrote an article the other day about the latest CIA plot is to arm all the neo-Nazis, right? They're going to have guerrilla groups of neo-Nazis. So if Russia win the war, which they will, right, or they'll take over 2/3 of the country that they plan to, they won't bother with the West because that's too anti-Russian, Lvov and whatever. So the Russian, I mean, it's going to take quite a long time the way it's going, but the Russians will eventually win, and then.
Well, that's the point.
The US are going to arm terrorist guerrilla neo-Nazis to sabotage things and blow up things, right? Just like Al Qaeda does, right?
I want to say a couple things, Ian. One, I don't agree with everything Russia's doing. I think they've gone too far, too extreme. I think there's too many civilian casualties. I don't like everything they've done. I don't like everything the Ukraine has done. I'm pretty in the middle on this. But I want to say one piece of propaganda that I've seen recently, which is WNBA star Brittany Griner detained in Russia. And they're trying to make it like this is like a hostage situation. This happened over a month ago before the war started. She broke the law of the land in Russia, and she was detained as she would be in any country. Don't go to a foreign country and break their law. And then, well, I'm rich and American, so I want special treatment. And this is the newest. She's the newest piece to me, in which is this is pure propaganda. What say you?
Well, I haven't seen that story, so I don't know what it was about.
Yeah, it was a WNBA star, a woman. She was caught with hash oil. And so I'll put it like this: just keep it in Amsterdam. If you got hash oil, just don't leave the Netherlands.
Oh, right. Oh, she had drugs.
Yes, she had drugs.
Oh, right.
And they didn't like that at the airport.
Yeah, I mean, every country arrests drugs traffickers, don't they? Which country doesn't?
Right.
But they're trying to sell this now as a hostage situation, which it is not even close to. I got to be honest with you, when those basketball players were stole stuff in North Korea and they got detained, I'm sorry. Maybe it makes me un-American. I didn't feel sorry for them. You're stupid. You're a foreign country.
You've got to be even more careful in a country like that, haven't you? Not to do anything dodgy because
especially North Korea.
It's just stupid.
No, it is. And we'll talk about the propaganda in 1 second. I want to make sure he's been very patient. I want to get to our great friend, one of our great audience members, Owl Killer. What is on your mind? 202-521-1320. Owl Killer.
Well, and you guys have just touched on so much important stuff. So I do want to talk about the Douglas McGregor interview on Fox. Now, something that was really puzzling to me from the beginning was why Russia did not just, like what we do, where we'll bomb where we're going to invade first and then send tanks and troops into it. It didn't make any sense. But then when he was saying how they're trying their best to not destroy infrastructure because they see the Eastern Ukrainians as basically their cousins. So that was pretty informative to get his perspective. So there's a saying in the military where listen to the 05s because to make 06, you got to go through you got to go to Congress, you got to go through a Senate to get approved. So that's Douglas McGregor is going to give you the pretty much from somebody that is going to give you the truth, and he's not trying to make any political connection. So that's his expert opinion.
Except everybody's trying to make him a traitor.
Again, like, hey, Carmen, you just said, and I'm with you. I'm not for war, and I'm not for all of Russia's actions over there. But hey, I'll tell you something. John Kiriakou was just on Fault Lines, and he brought up the current CIA director, William Burns' cable from 2008 that WikiLeaks put out, where he said Russia's concerns were Georgia and Ukraine NATO membership, and that was in 2008, and how Russia did not. You can pull it up yourself. Go ahead and type in William Burns 2008 Russia cable WikiLeaks, and that's his opinion at that time, that Russia did not want to intervene, but they see that there is a great divide between West and Eastern Ukraine, and they would have to make the decision about whether to get involved themselves. So regardless of how you feel on the situation, the events that have transpired since 2014 have led to where we are today. Now, you also
let me. That's a great segue, Al Killer. Fantastic call as usual. Let me bring that up, and Ian, I'll talk about Liz Truss, the foreign minister for the UK. Tell me, what am I missing here? From the perspective of the UK, what if Liz Truss had, when she had that meeting with Vladimir Putin, what if the UK had 100% sided with Russia and said, you know what, we're already getting that Germany, for instance, is not going to vote to approve Ukraine joining the EU. They wouldn't get into NATO. But what if Liz Truss had completely said, hey, you know what, Russia? We're going to support stopping the attacks in Donbass. We're going to support you. We're going to support Ukraine following the Minsk Accords, the Minsk agreements, and we're not going to have them join NATO. If she caved to Putin, how would that have hurt the UK in any way, Ian? Have you figured that out yet? Because I can't.
It wouldn't, but that's not what they're interested in. The entire British government for decades has been totally insane, near-con warmongering nut jobs. Right? The UK is now continuing its foreign policy that's been in place for the last 500 years, right? Which is to destabilise Europe, right? Keep Europe down, right? So they can control Europe and stop Russia becoming allies with Germany. It's the same foreign policy they've had for the last 500 years, which is to get European countries fighting each other so they don't become strong. Right? If Germany and Russia became allies, it'd be absolutely tremendous economically for both countries, because Russia would sell even more oil and gas to Germany, and Germany could sell all its BMWs and Mercs to the newly rich Russian population, couldn't it? It'd be boom time for both of them. So that's what the US and the UK don't want to happen. They don't want an alliance between Germany and Russia, because the two countries would economically boom if that happened. Right? All those German factories exporting stuff to Russia, that'd be brilliant for Germany, and they'd have all the cheap oil and gas to build them with as well, wouldn't they? See?
Now, but Ian, do you think it's the car you drive, the Jaguar, right? Is that what you drive, Ian?
No, I don't drive a Jaguar, no.
There we go. Okay, that was just a guess. I remember that from a Pink Floyd song. But I agree. The Russia and Germany being allied is what a lot of people fear, and it's not they're afraid of invasion. They're afraid of economics. Now, are you seeing in the UK right now? Are you starting to see gas prices here in the U.S.? They've gone up to, I don't know if it's going to transfer for liters or whatever, but it's up to $4 a gallon, which is a lot nationwide. Are you starting to see the gas price go up in England, Ian?
The natural gas price has tripled in the last 4 weeks or something, and the oil price is now $120 a barrel. So that's all translating into the price at the pump. So the prices are skyrocketing. I mean, inflation was already going through the roof before Russia invaded, and it's going to get a hell of a lot worse now with all the energy prices going up. Food prices have gone up. I mean, the wheat prices have doubled. So your bread's going to double, right?
Now, let me ask you one other question. Ian, do you think that there's a new awareness in the UK? Because if you'd asked people 2 years ago in the U.S. who Klaus Schwab is, before the pandemic, nobody had any idea who Klaus Schwab is. They might guess a soccer player or something. They don't know. Is the awareness
quite a lot of people have heard of him now, yes. Quite a lot.
Right, and in the UK, too. Right.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, in the UK. I mean, quite a few people. And he's not bandied about in the mainstream media, of course. He's kept under the covers. He's not behind the curtain in the mainstream media. And I can't remember seeing any reference in the mainstream media. But he's all over social media, Twitter and whatever. People post about him all the time in The Great Reset. Which
is a book by Klaus Schwab. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, not
he wrote a book called The Great.
And there's all the videos. There was some Dutch MP who called him out late last year, who called out the Prime Minister, the globalist Mark Rutte, who's a complete traitor. He called him out. Well, why did you get this book from Klaus Schwab called The Great Reset? And he said it was great. And he said, thank you very much for your great book, Klaus Schwab. He called him out in Parliament.
Now, I've been watching the British political scene as Sir Keir Starmer came in as head of the Labour Party a couple of years ago. And I know a lot of people in the UK were sounding alarm bells. But on this war, Keir Starmer has been an absolute war hawk. Is that going to hurt Labour more in the UK, do you think, Ian?
Well, I was not going to do them any good. I mean, ordinary people don't want war. Even when there's massive propaganda like there is now, they don't want war. I mean, war's terrible for ordinary people. The only people it's good for is the weapons maker and the politicians, isn't it? War's not good for anybody else.
And
more Labour people will be more pro-peace. I mean, the Tory party memberships will be more pro-military and more warlike, right? The Tories will. But most Labour supporters are anti-war.
Now, is there any talk anymore of Partygate, the scandal? I don't know if it's much of a scandal, really. That Boris, how has it? Because I remember when the UK papers were saying this is the end of Bojo, the walls are closing in, but you never thought that was going to be the end of Bojo.
There's nothing like that happening now. I mean, the Russian invasion, that's the entire focus now. So anything else is just pushed back into the background. It's not talked about. It's only Russia and the war and sanctions and stuff.
I have noticed, and I'm actually alarmed by this. And if any of your listeners have seen him, maybe they can help. We're trying to locate. I haven't seen Dr. Anthony Fauci in about 3 weeks.
I know. There's a missing report out on him. missing person report.
He was on every other day, if not every day, and I haven't seen him in weeks. So just if anybody's seen him, please contact the authorities.
So, Carmine, aside from playing Where in the World is Anthony Fauci, do you have any questions for our guest, Ian Schilling?
No, I mean, he pretty much covered it. He's, Ian, there's not really much to ask you because you're, you kind of say everything when you come on. I will say my one friend from the UK, I was complaining about American gas prices, and he explained to me what you guys are paying per liter of, as he called it, petrol.
Yeah.
And apparently it comes out to about 9 something a gallon in dollars.
Yeah, it's probably 10 now.
Which is, I don't know how you even drive a car, if that's the case. But it would seem to me that would be really, really tough. But that is correct.
Yeah, it's $9 or $10. Yeah, a gallon, a US gallon. Yeah. So
Wow.
I mean, it's always been double what it is in America. Always.
Really, double.
Well, it's double now, isn't it? I mean, gas price in the US is something like $4, isn't it? $4.50, something like that. Now, and it's now $9 or $10 in Europe and the UK.
In fairness, that's all that free healthcare you're getting.
It's not free, is it?
Free.
It's a completely expensive, mismanaged disaster zone and kill zone with all the medical malpractice that goes on.
I was told it was free. I wasn't aware.
Now, let me ask you, Ian, how do you think this is going to, because there has been some turmoil. Keir Starmer came in, of course, after a shakeup at Labor. Do you think that Starmer and Johnson are firmly entrenched in their positions for now? Are there going to be any shakeups in the political parties coming in the UK?
No, definitely not. I mean, they will now be even more entrenched because all the papers are all supporting the war. So anybody who's warlike, all the papers support them, right? And all the TV stations support them. I mean, Keir Starmer is exactly like Tony Blair. What's Tony Blair famous for? Invading Iraq. That's what he's famous for, isn't it?
Oh, right. And again, I just can't imagine if you were a Labor supporter, how it must feel now to be under Tony Blair, because they thought they'd gotten rid of the likes of him, correct? And moved the Labor back to being a Labor Party. I just can't even tell who's supporting literally who's supporting Labor at this point, Ian.
The BBC. That's basically it. The BBC and The Guardian, right, are all both neoliberals, but they're actually fascists. Right?
Very interesting.
Both the BBC and The Guardian I've always been Tony Blair supporters for the last 20 odd years. So that means they're totalitarian fascists who want to destroy civil rights and have mass surveillance on everybody, start loads of wars, have big military budgets, have censorship everywhere. That's what the BBC and The Guardian is supposed to be a Labour supporter paper. I support, right? Totalitarianism, fascism, and perpetual war. That's what they support. Brilliant.
Well, yeah, it is shocking. But we've had a similar thing in the U.S., where back in the run-up to Iraq, we had a legit anti-war movement, and I feel like Soros bought that out. So there's no anti-war movement really anymore, or they're using the anti-war movement now to go after. The anti-war movement didn't care about the people of Donbass at all. They didn't care about the coup that overthrew the government. Has there been any sense of anybody that maybe throwing coups is a bad idea, Ian?
Not in the UK, no. Not in the mainstream, no.
Okay, we're out of time.
They don't even mention it, that the near-term cause of all this was the 2014 coup and the 8-year civil war. They don't even mention that. They don't mention it at all.
Carmine says it. You have said it all. You say it all in a very blunt and concise way. Ian Schilling, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Great conversation as usual. When we come back, Carmine, I got a question for you here on The Backstory.
listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
And we are back. 105.5 FM, AM 1390. You're listening to the best damn talk show in the world, a free speech zone, the show that brings you the truth behind the news. I'm investigative journalist Lee Stranahan. This is The Backstory. And want to thank Ian Schilling once again for coming on. Always a great appearance. He really does say what needs to be said. And so, great appearance by Ian, as usual. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, great tape interview that we did with Diliana Gaytandzhieva. And you're going to want to hear this. She talks about the proof that the U.S. has biolabs in Ukraine. And it's not coming from Russia. The proof is from U.S. websites. And we also talk about her getting together with Carmen Sabia. And so, Carmen, say the name of the show. Let me give you the honors to get that boom out of the way. Carmen? Oh, Carmen's vanished mysteriously. So I'll say it. Ready? It's The Backstory. You can't say I didn't try, though. I did try to give Carmine the boom. So let me know when Carmine's back, so I got a question for him. This bioweapons lab thing, if you did not see George Galloway, a Sputnik segment he did on RT, I don't know where it is anymore because RT America shut down production last week. And again, we wish everyone over there best of luck in the future. But Galloway did a thing saying, and it's true, the bioweapon thing. Now, okay, some may quibble on the word weapons. Maybe they're just researching anthrax for the benefit of Ukraine near the Russian border in Ukraine. I'm going to go with bioweapons, especially since we also know that they were doing things to collect the DNA of Russians. That came out recently. And look that up. This is not Russian propaganda. If we remember the Iraq War, Carmen's back on?
No, I was saying the plague. They were messing with the plague.
Yes, the plague and anthrax. I like that because it's a band. The plague would be a very unpopular band. But we talk about that with Diliana. You're really going to want to hear this interview because she's an investigative journalist. And we're not getting this from Russian propaganda. We're getting this from U.S. websites that list contracts. So there's no doubt that the U.S. military has been funding biolabs in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, where Diliana is, and Ukraine. We'll talk about that all at the bottom of the hour. But I got a question when Carmen comes back about where this is going to go propaganda-wise, because I think, let me ask you, Rod. I'm starting to see some change, but I don't think where Republicans are going to end up on. Let me tell you where I think Republicans are going to end up. I think I can see it already. Tell me if this seems right to you, Rod. I can see where well, Carmen, I was going to ask Rod, so we lost you.
Sure.
We're glad you're back.
Yeah,
Carmen,
my phone's being stupid.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I think this is where this is all going with Republicans. I think at the end of the day, within about 2 or 3 weeks, most Republicans are going to say, it's not like I love Putin, but I'm no longer rah-rah Ukraine because I see too much censorship. I see too much virtue signaling. And as I've looked into this, I see who their allies are. And it's people like Klaus Schwab. It's people like George Soros. So I have questions about it. I don't go along with the Biden administration's narrative on Ukraine anymore. And I think that's where they're going to end up. Does that sound about right to you, Carmine?
I do think that, especially with Tucker Carlson being Tucker Carlson lately and saying what he's saying.
Yeah, Carmine vanished.
Can you not hear me?
No, yeah, now I can. You want to wait for a
yes,
second there.
especially with what Tucker Carlson has been saying. You know, I think he's presenting. He's just presenting another thing.
I'm not saying it because it's my position. My position is much more. I like Putin, and I'm one of those people who I don't see what I'm supposed to disagree with so far in the war. No one has convinced me.
Well, now wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
You agree with everything he's been doing?
Well, you have to be specific. What shouldn't I agree with, do you think?
First of all, I don't think dropping bombs on residential neighborhoods is a good idea in any war.
Okay, let me ask you this. What I know for sure, because I've seen the footage, the Ukrainians are putting artillery right next to apartment buildings. Okay? So
I'd have to see evidence of that.
Well, I'll show it to you. It's okay. I mean, you go, there's the artillery, there's the apartment building. So they're using people as human shields. So if they're bombing apartment blocks where they've got artillery, would that change your mind? Because I've seen that.
Yes, of course it would. You know, because I'll tell you the truth, I did think to myself, it is weird. Putin seems to be, because they could have crushed Ukraine in a couple of days. And it seems like he's trying to not kill civilians, and yet here's all these dead civilians.
Well, unfortunately, it's a war, so you're going to get some casualties.
Sure.
And that's and here's the other thing about that. War's bad, and someone trying to avoid war for 8 years is good, in my opinion. But at a certain point, and I'll ask you a variant on the question I asked Ian. Tell me what would have hurt the U.S. if the Biden administration had said, we're going to look at Russia's proposal. Russia doesn't want Ukraine joining NATO. And you know what? We're not going to push that issue.
No, I think I said from the beginning, here's how this could have all been avoided. And I got attacked on Twitter. You know how I get attacked on Twitter, and I got attacked on Twitter for saying, I said, America, the problem with the world, not just America, but I live in America, so I said America. The problem with America is we like a dichotomy. Here's the good guy, here's the bad guy. And we're making a hero out of Zelensky. But what I said was, I don't think he's a hero. I think he's being selfish, because here's a guy that if he said, hey, look, all right, you know what, you guys are right. We're just going to stay neutral, and we're not going to join NATO. And we'll put that in writing. There'd be thousands less dead people right now.
Right.
So
that's what I'm saying. And you know what? They're not going to get into NATO anyway.
And that's the point. They're never getting into NATO, so why not just put it in writing?
Right. Why not just go along with it to avoid the war that was coming?
Because now they're trying to use it to expedite getting into the EU in like a week.
But they're not going to. Germany's already. Did you see this? Germany and I believe France, one other major EU country, said not, because there are some Macedonia or wherever. There's some minor EU countries. But when Germany comes out and says, we're not going to vote you into the EU, think about that.
Because
they're not getting in the...
Here's the problem. Let's bring in this country that's at war with Russia into the EU. Now, Europe's at war with Russia. And guess what? Then America's at war with Russia. And now we got a world war. But why would you do that? That's insane. That's insane.
And here's the other thing that's coming. We talked briefly with Ian about the price of gas, but I don't know what it's like up in Jersey. Even here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, gas prices are about $3.80 a gallon. What's it like up in Newark?
Almost $4.
Okay, right.
And I've heard around the same.
And the national average, you got all those refineries down on the turnpike. So, but we're seeing $4 a gallon gas. Would you be shocked if it's $5 by the next time you're on the show next Monday, Carmine?
Oh, I expect it. A week? I expect it. And here's what people don't understand. This is the thing people don't. I love all these rich people on TV saying, well, don't worry about the price of gas. You know, it's a couple extra dollars. No. It's a couple extra dollars in everything because every product that you purchase gets to its destination via an airplane or a truck or some kind of vehicle that now has to raise the price because they're paying more for gas. So you're paying more on everything when the price of fuel rises, which, by the way, the United States shouldn't be depending on any foreign country for oil. We have plenty of our own. If the left stopped caving in to environmentalists, let me ask you, Lee. I mean, I know you love Russia, and Russia's, I think, not a bad country. I don't think they're bad people. Does Russian oil burn cleaner than American oil?
No, it's not magic.
Okay. Does Venezuelan or Iranian oil burn cleaner than American oil? Tell me what we're saving in the environment by outsourcing the oil purchase.
Well, people don't understand because some people are saying, well, immediately increase production. But you know what? The ability, once you could immediately double production, immediately. And that's not going to affect anything for months because of the way right?
Correct. But
I'm not saying we should.
But if you do it, OPEC's going to change their price real quick.
Yeah, and by the way, it's significant also that Saudi Arabia, a major OPEC nation, is basically siding Russia at this point, siding with Russia. Have you noticed that? Our ally Saudi Arabia, because they're an OPEC country, has taken a very pro-Russian stand. But I'll tell you the one thing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the one thing it won't do, some people are saying, well, if we increase oil production, it would end Russian aggression. No, it wouldn't. This is going to end when Putin finishes his job. That's it. I mean, are you convinced of that Putin's got a job and he's going to finish that job, period?
Correct. And Ukraine has no chance. And all this talk in our media, all this pretending in our media that, the David is fighting Goliath and, look at, they're going to get slaughtered. This is not a movie. Okay? They have no chance. This is Mike Tyson versus Lee Stranahan. Okay? They got no chance.
Right.
They got no chance. Mike Tyson versus Carmine Savia. They got no chance. So all you're doing is cheering on the slaughter of people who should just have surrendered a week ago. The other thing is, Lee, and I want to point this out because, again, I say this is something nobody's talking about. I know Russia's, quote, the bad guy here, right? That's how America's portraying it. Russia's the bad guy. And so anything we do against them is A-okay, right? We can justify it because they're the bad guy, right? Let me tell you what should scare everybody listening to this program right now, no matter what country you're in. Inside of a week, with just a little bit of pressure, just about every corporation on this planet and every government on this planet has turned the lights out on a country, has turned the lights out, taking away their banks, their credit cards, DHL, UPS, FedEx, trade. All in a cashless society, the lights can be turned out on a person or a nation in a blink of an eye. And that should scare the hell out of everybody.
Well, and I got to say this, too, and I think you'd actually agree with this. One of the things Putin did in the past few years is he paid down the debt. So Russia has very little debt. And they're talking about putting their currency in the gold standard, right? two moves that I might guess, Carmine, is you'd agree. You don't like all the debt the U.S. is carrying, do you?
Correct.
And what it means is if you got two friends and one's drowning in credit card debt and the other one owns everything and they both lose their job, you know who's better off.
Yeah.
And the problem with the friend who's got all the credit card debt, let's say, he may seem like he's got a nicer place. He may seem like, oh, he's got newer furniture or whatever. He's got a bigger TV, but he doesn't own it.
Correct.
And that means when you go over there the next week and he's got no furniture and no TV, the other guy's still got something, right? So Russia, and that's been what's happening. And by the way, I got to say, the reason I think, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think the reason the people who hate Putin, I hear two arguments. One is arguments by leftists. They hate Putin because he's pro-family, or they say he's anti-LGBT, which is not true. It's no more true than it would be true about you, Carmine.
Correct.
Where I assume that you're in New Jersey. Have you ever met a single person who's gay ever, Carmine?
Oh, several. Yes, many.
Right. Do you care?
No, could not care less.
Right.
But if you ask me if I support traditional marriage, yes. You know, last night on CNN, I don't know if you saw it, Lee. I watched CNN. Last night on CNN, they were basically trying to blame Putin's Christianity for the war.
Yes, I see, and this is what I'm getting at. Do people not get all the stuff they're using against Putin is either stuff that I like about him. I like the fact that he took the biggest, one of the biggest, second biggest atheist nation in the world, and now it's avowedly Christian. Avowedly.
Yeah.
Think about that, Carmine. This was this was like, aside from China, that's the other huge one, obviously. But one of the biggest atheist, explicitly atheist nations in the country is now explicitly a Christian. They're not shy about their Christianity. And even on the LGBT stuff, for instance, I've interviewed people over there. They said, if you're gay, you can walk down the street and hold your boyfriend's hand or whatever. They said, that's not the issue. But do you know what? Do you know what they just consider nonsense is like Drag Queen Story Hour?
Yes.
Or
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Or dudes swimming against ladies. Calling themselves ladies.
I was watching. Have you seen the reboot of the show Bel Air?
No.
So they're doing Fresh Prince of Bel Air again as a drama. By the way, it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's on Peacock. Watch it. But
interesting.
They made a character in the show apparently gay, who was not gay in the original.
Carlton?
Now, I'm not saying you. And if you complain about this, you will say, "Oh, you're anti-LGBT. You don't want us to be represented." No. Well, here's what I'm saying to you: if I took somebody out of a cryogenic,
was it Carlton?
No, it is not Carlton. So
okay,
do you want to know who it is?
Just a complete guess. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Spoiler alert: turn your ears away from the radio for 5 seconds if you don't want to know who the gay character is on Bel Air. The gay character is Ashley, the little girl.
Oh, interesting.
She's 12, by the way. You know she's.
Well, wait, so it's a 12-year-old gay character?
Correct. Now,
that to me,
it's pushing the envelope already. You're sexualizing a 12-year-old.
Right. But I digress. I don't want to. No, here's the thing: if she was heterosexual but slutty, we don't need to see a slutty 12-year-old. You follow? You see what I'm saying?
Slutty. She's just attracted to girls, what have you.
No, but I'm just saying, if she was, I wouldn't be in favor of it if it was a hypersexual 12-year-old heterosexual girl. I'd say, what are you doing?
Show, but it's very woke. And
right.
Here's my argument, Lee. If you took somebody from 1950, they were in a cryogenic freeze. Bayo, please. They were in a cryogenic freeze until right now, okay? And you took them out of their cryogenic freeze, and all you did was show them movies and television. And then you said to them, all right, how much of the population do you think is LGBT right now? They would say at least 30 to 40%, in my opinion.
Let's say again.
The number's closer to 5%. It's probably lower than that. And yet on every show, every family, there's a gay character, a gay storyline. It's the agenda that's pissing people off. Not the fact that you're gay. It's the damned agenda. And I know a lot of gay people that agree with me on that.
No, I 100%. Yes, same here. I know gay people who, I was talking to somebody who's gay recently about this, and about how the politicized transgender movement, and what this guy was saying to me was, back in the AIDS era, drag performers were useful for fundraisers, let's say. Does that make sense? But
yes.
But the idea of them doing story hour for kids never occurred to anybody.
No, it's stupid.
It just never occurred. And so Putin, like I say, when they hate him, it's because he's doing stuff, I think, like he doesn't have debt, he's pro-family. Here's another thing. Let me ask you about this. I was at a event recently out here in Sioux Falls, and it's people running for town council. And I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. On the other hand, I don't care. They were talking about the need for affordable daycare. Now, and one of the women running for city council is a working mom, and everyone agreed on the idea of affordable daycare and everything. Let me posit something. What if somebody had run, Carmine, and then said, you know what? I want to make our town support women staying at home with their kids if that's what they want to do. We want to make it easier for women to stay home with the kids by tax cuts or whatever. That if you don't have, see, because here's the thing. If you stay home with the kids, you are making a financial sacrifice. But ultimately, I do think it's better. I really do. And this is where the part might get in trouble. I think it's kind of better. And I think that something's happened where even Republicans go, yeah, we need more affordable daycare. Well, you know what? I guess. But what's wrong with actually promoting the idea of a parent staying at home? You see what I'm getting at, Carmine?
Correct. It is better. It is better. I mean, it's absolutely better. I don't know anybody that would disagree with that. I mean, listen, you know what, Lee? Here's what I tell people all the time. Well, it worked for all of human history till about 10 minutes ago.
Right. And that's why Vladimir Putin is avowedly, explicitly, and do you know what one of the reasons he's pro-family? Because are you aware what the abortion rate was like under the Soviet Union, Carmine?
No, I'm not.
It was off the charts high. I think the number, I think this is correct, is that the average woman had like 4 abortions or something like that in the Soviet Union. Right. Well, here's the thing. Why, if you have an avowedly atheist country, why the hell not? And so there were a lot of abortions. So one of the things is after the fall of the Soviet Union, and when Putin came in, he said, this is nuts, and it needs to be lower. And you know what? He did things to incentivize having kids, and sure enough, it's working. And I really believe that's one of the reasons that a lot of people on the left hate him. But hey, Carmine, we're almost out of time. I want to talk about this Diliana interview coming up. People are going to want to hear this. Diliana's Bulgarian, so Stay with it. She's. I'll put it like this. She speaks perfect English, but she does have an accent. But I want everyone to stick this out. This is major importance. And she does agree to do an interview, Carmine, with you, if you can get it passed, whoever you got to get it passed. Seriously.
Okay.
Listen to this interview. She's got proof that the U.S. is funding biolabs in Ukraine. And it comes, and she'll share the sources, I'm sure. She's not hiding them from U.S. sites. And as she talks about in this interview, the media attacked Diliana for reporting on this. You believe that, right?
Of course I do.
And we got that coming up right after this short break. Carmine, I want to say goodbye to you. Then we'll play the interview, pre-recorded interview. Love you, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the best damn talk show in the world. Listen to the Diliana interview coming out. And Carmine, Diliana will talk to you. So there we go. I've set something up. Talk to you later, everyone. Bye for now.
Stuck in traffic? No problem. Stay informed. Stay tuned to Radio Sputnik on 105.5 FM or 1390 AM in the Washington, D.C. area. Need more? Follow us on Facebook or check us out on SputnikNews.com.
When the going gets tough, the powerful want propaganda. But we won't let them cancel the facts. Whether you're woke or drowsy, we know that you can handle the truth, and we're giving it to you every morning. Fault Lines with Thomas and Stranahan every Monday through Friday from 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Your first stop for sanity in a world gone mad.
In a media landscape filled with so-called journalists acting as stenographers for their billionaire bosses, there is a desperate need for news, analysis, and perspectives that buck the status quo and get to the heart of how domestic and international events impact you and me, as well as showing how we can get involved in the struggle to change that status quo. Check out By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, to hear the stories and voices that mainstream media refuses to tell you. And join us as we connect the political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us. That's By Any Means Necessary, Monday through Friday at 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on Radio Sputnik.
Hi, I'm political analyst Garland Nixon.
And I'm political scientist, author, and nationally syndicated columnist Dr. Wilmer Leon.
We're the co-hosts for The Critical Hour, airing Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C.
We close out your day with a thorough and hard-hitting analysis of the day's top stories, where we bring in brilliant scholars, authors, and investigative journalists from around the world.
And on Fridays, it's panel time, when we do a roundup of the week's most important issues.
Join us to keep up with the world's top stories.
Enjoy an in-depth analysis.
And have a little fun along the way. Listen to our show,
The Critical Hour, Monday through Fridays on Radio Sputnik.
And we are back, 105.5 FM, AM 1390 in Washington, D.C. Thanks to everyone for listening. So I am very happy to be joined right now by Diliana Gaytandzhieva. She's a fantastic investigative journalist who's been covering the issue of these bioweapons labs in Eastern Europe, Bulgaria, as well as Ukraine. And we have over the weekend Russia, the Russian government himself, the Ministry of Defense, and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs put out these documents saying it shows that there was an attempt to clean up and hide about U.S. Department of Defense-backed bioweapons labs in Ukraine. And one of the first people I wanted to talk to, because I've interviewed her before, is Diliana. Hey, Diliana, you're joining us from Bulgaria right now, correct?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, of course, because you are an expert on this, and you've done great work in the past. So let me just ask, before we get to the information that was put out by the Russian government over the weekend, when you've researched this, you went to a source that clearly everybody should go, well, if it's coming from that source, a lot of your sourcing came from the U.S. government itself, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I published a lot of documents and information that I have obtained from the U.S. Federal Contracts Registry. So from the official U.S. government website, which has published documents and information about the U.S. federal awards and contracts. So this information is absolutely verifiable and it is authentic. I have put links to these documents and they originate from the U.S. government.
So there's no question, you don't have any question that the U.S. government has been backing bioweapons research, or at least I won't even use the word bioweapons. I'll get to that in a second, because part of it is viewed here, but there's disease, I don't know what to call it, bio stuff, right? Bioresearch, yeah.
Yes, actually, according to this information from the U.S. Federal Contracts Registry, let's talk about Ukraine. Until 2020, July of 2020, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, this is an agency part of the Pentagon, has allocated $80 million for biological research in Ukraine. $80 million only for Ukraine. This was in 2020. This is official information that, once again, I want to stress, I obtained from the U.S. Federal Contracts Registry. So they allocated $80 million for unknown biological research in Ukraine. Over the years, since 2018, I have published a lot of information about the Defense Threat Reduction Agency programs in Ukraine, in Georgia, and in other countries. I even went to Georgia, where the Pentagon has spent $180 million on one biolaboratory that, according to documents originating from this laboratory, was the leading laboratory in an experimental treatment of local people against hepatitis C. This was an American program. And as a result of this program, more than 240 death cases were reported. In the majority of these cases, the cause of death is written as unknown. Okay, now let's talk about Ukraine, because obviously people now they are interested in the topic because of the conflict in Ukraine. All of a sudden, the American media, the first days after the events unfolded, they started writing articles how the U.S. has never funded biolaboratories in Ukraine. All of a sudden, they started publishing such articles. So I decided to check myself, because I remember that I downloaded documents about 11 Pentagon-funded biolaboratories in Ukraine from the website of the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. So I opened the page on the website about this biological engagement program of the Pentagon in Ukraine, and to my surprise, these documents were not accessible anymore. They were taken down. I had downloaded these documents in the past, but luckily people or internet enthusiasts, they archived these links that don't work anymore now. And these documents are still accessible, so people can see themselves these documents originating from the website of the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. They can clearly see that the Pentagon had funded 11 biolaboratories in Ukraine.
Okay, wait, Diliana, I just want people to be clear on this. So it seems like there's a cover-up going on. Is that right?
I'm just presenting facts.
No, you are, but I'm saying as soon as you start presenting these facts, documents that had been accessible were no longer accessible, but you were able to still track them down through the Internet Archive. But this happened after your reporting, correct?
I don't know when exactly this happened. I can only say that it coincided with the information that the so-called fact checkers or the self-proclaimed fact checkers from the U.S. media said that the U.S. The Pentagon had never ever funded biolaboratories in Ukraine. So now all pieces of evidence, or they think that all pieces of evidence, they are not accessible anymore, and this is fake news, but it is not. I have no idea how is that possible. This information was in the public domain. All of a sudden, they just deny this information, originating from their own government. I have no idea why is that.
And the reason I was skeptical, the reason I was hesitant, not skeptical, because no, you're right. You've nailed this, Diliana. You've gotten this exactly right, and everyone should be concerned about it. And in some cases, the U.S. government said, yes, we've been doing bio research, but they say it's for good. It's not for bioweapons. Is that what their argument is? Is that the bio stuff they're doing is something everyone should like? Is that what they're saying, essentially?
This is their official statement. However, when questions arise from, let's say, inexplicable death cases, like in the case that in the experimental treatment that I mentioned before, 248 death cases, and the cause of death is unknown. What is that? For the good of the people, for the benefit of the local people, why have these military scientists, Pentagon scientists, been given diplomatic immunity in Georgia to research deadly viruses, bacteria, and toxins? Why has Ukraine signed, and also Georgia signed, an agreement with the United States, with the U.S. government, and under special provisions in these agreements, the U.S. government personnel, and including these military scientists, they are indemnified for death and injuries caused to the local population arising out of activities under this agreement. Why is that? So this means that if these military scientists, American military scientists, funded by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, if they cause death or injury to the local population, they cannot be held to account. No legal proceedings can be started against them, and the host country cannot defend the interests of their own people. Or if it is all about the local people, the benefit for the benefit of the local people and the good of these people, then why are these special legal protection provisions? Why do they enjoy diplomatic immunity? Why 248 death cases were registered in Georgia, and the cause of death in the majority of cases is listed as unknown? And when I asked my questions to the local authorities, I didn't have any answer. What is the problem to answer me? The problem is that they cannot explain why these so many deaths were listed as unknown. How can somebody die under such an experimental program and the death, his or her death, to be listed as unknown? This is a crime. What is this? How do you explain this?
Well, Diliana, all the questions you're asking seem to me like something any responsible journalist would do. First off, if you're looking into something, you don't expect as a journalist the government's just going to admit wrongdoing. They're going to deny it and cover it up. So you ask follow-up questions. and you're asking them. Now, you've read, I'm sure, a lot of the other mainstream media coverage. Now, just seriously, is anybody doing good journalism on this from the New York Times, the Post, any sites that are establishment media sites? Have any of them asked even basic questions like or in Bulgaria? What is anybody covering this properly?
For me, this is not, especially if I'm talking about this issue, this is not journalism. This is copy and paste the official government statement. This is not journalism. Journalism means to publish facts that others don't want you to publish. The rest is public relations. This is what they are doing. They have the official government statement. They copy and paste it, and they say it is false information. They even ignore documents. This is unimaginable, and this is against all journalistic rules and standards. You need to check your information using different sources. So, okay, one of your sources, this is the official government statement, but you need to check, is it true? Are there other people, witnesses, or documents that could verify the U.S. government information or the local government information? You need to check this. They don't do that. They just copy and paste the official government information. This is my opinion. Who thinks that this is journalism? Okay, for me, my job is to work for the people, not for governments and corporations. So everybody decides who to believe, the self-proclaimed fact checkers or the facts and the documents.
Now so let's turn, over the weekend, we had the Russian government, and that's the Ministry of Defense and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, both put out on their Twitter feed documents. So let's turn to Ukraine specifically, because you've talked about these bioweapons labs. Do we have reason to believe, from the documents you've looked at on the U.S. side, from the contracts we've looked at, is there proof from the U.S. side that there have been biolabs in Ukraine that the U.S. was behind, in Ukraine specifically?
Yes, absolutely. According to documents that the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine published on its own website, the Pentagon has funded 11 biolaboratories in Ukraine. In addition, according to information that I obtained from the U.S. Federal Contracts Registry, the Pentagon has contracted a private American company to rebuild and equip 2 new biolaboratories in Kiev and in Odessa. The duration of this program was 2021-2023. So next year they were supposed to finish their work on these 2 new biolaboratories. So the next year they were supposed to become operational. So we have actually 13 biolaboratories that have been funded by the Pentagon. I have no idea why they are refusing this information when this information comes from the US government itself. I mean, they refuse to have anything to do with biolaboratories. They just say, we have a project that was for the destruction of bioweapons or bioagents that were left such facilities in the Soviet Union. But this was 20, 30 years ago, so long ago. We are now in 2021. We are not in 1990. These are times that have long passed. So this is justification of their old program. So when they dealt with the bioweapons in the Soviet Union, after the fall of the Soviet Union, why did they continue this program? Why has the Pentagon spent $2.5 billion on the health, as they say, foreign citizens instead of on the health of their own citizens? I'm not familiar with the U.S. Situation now, but how is the health care system in the United States? Will American people love to or need $2.5 billion? Are they so healthy, or don't they need medical care? This $2.5 billion U.S. taxpayers' money, aren't they? Isn't it enough to cover how many healthcare providers or how many medical procedures to poor people in the United States? I don't know. I'm just asking. I want to know where is the logic.
Now, Diliana, let me ask this. One of the things that seems like, and again, you've talked about, you're in Bulgaria, you speak Bulgarian, but it's a Cyrillic language like Ukraine, so it's not Ukrainian, but you could look at the documents, right? When you looked at the documents Russia put up, they mention specific names, dates, they have signatures. Did that all, just from, you looked at a lot of documents, did it seem like Russia was posting fake documents? Or from when you looked at them, did you immediately go, this is fake, or did it seem real to you?
There is so much information and so many details when you look at these documents. You have very concrete details, precise strains of viruses, bacteria, bioagents, how many numbers were destroyed. So many details that if anybody wants to fake such information, to publish fake documents, would not go into such details, because otherwise this information could be easily
disproven.
Yes. So it makes no sense. The information is so concrete with so many details that it's absolutely genuine, given the fact that the same biolaboratories had already been funded by the United States, and there is so much information, even in the public domain. Everybody can verify this information.
Do we have any information on the U.S. side on the specific agents like anthrax or whatever? Is there any information from the U.S. side, or do they keep that hidden?
There is information, not in such details, about the bioagents that they have studied, and yes, anthrax, tularemia, brucella, cholera, they are among the diseases and the pathogens that have been studied and researched under this biological engagement program. Also, I forgot to mention in Ukraine, in the last years, there were inexplicable outbreaks. And I'm providing some statistics that can be easily, again, verified. So this is not fake news. Whatever, I realized one thing. No matter how many documents I present, even those documents that are official and that are originating from the U.S. government, U.S. media will always say fake news, because they don't want the world to know that their government has been engaged in very risky research and warring activities. The same was with the U.S. government project in Wuhan, in China.
Let me ask you this, too, because I appreciate, first off, I've interviewed you before. It's always an honor to talk to you, Diliana. You've done great work on this, and I appreciate you taking the time. And you can't be doing interviews all day, I know that. But we have a co-host on the show, Carmine Sabia, who writes for publications in the United States. If another journalist like Carmine wanted to talk to you and ask questions and get links, these mainstream media journalists, they won't talk to anybody. You'd talk to Carmine, wouldn't you, Diliana?
I can talk to anybody. I have no issues with why not to talk to other journalists here. We are not pro one country or against one country. It must be clearly stated. All of us, all all of the journalists around the world, we work for the people, no matter which country or if you are affiliated to one government or another, if you are state-run media or not. We are all working for the people, and if there are such biolaboratories that are not transparent and that their military scientists have diplomatic immunity and they are indemnified for deaths and injuries to the local population, we all must demand answers. And I'm very surprised that I'm being attacked for doing this, for asking questions, for presenting documents originating from the U.S. government. I'm surprised that this is the reaction to others. But I don't mind talking about it because it is probably one of the most important investigations now, especially after the pandemic started.
No, I agree it's important. And the fact that the media is helping the U.S. government to, I'll use the word cover up. I don't know how else to put it. When the media is on there trying to discredit a good investigative reporter like you, who's pointing to U.S. government documents, that is a cover-up to me, very clearly a cover-up. And what they're doing, trying to smear you, is just part of that cover-up. So once again, I appreciate it. And let me ask you one final question, Diliana. When I think Bulgaria, now I'm strange, but I think the group, the MEK, do you know anything about them?
No, I don't know.
Okay, because there's a group, there's a weird, when I think Bulgaria, I believe it's where the MEK is, other weird group I know about. But that's it. But let me ask you, so how close are you? Bulgaria is right on the border of Russia and Ukraine, correct?
We border on the Black Sea, which borders on Russia and Ukraine, and we have many Bulgarians, around 200,000 Bulgarians living in Ukraine and in Donbass.
Well, now, because you're there, let me ask you this. Do you have any sense of what Bulgarians, like if I were to go to a coffee shop or something in Bulgaria, what they think of the Russian-Ukrainian war? Are they mad at Russia? Are they mad at Ukraine? What's their take, Bulgarians, the average Bulgarian, do you think, Diliana?
Bulgaria has very strong historical and cultural links to Russia because first Bulgaria gave the alphabet to Russia. We gave the Christianity to Russia. In 1877-78, Russia helped us liberate from 500 years Turkish occupation. And this is every year we celebrate our National Liberation Day on the 3rd of March every year, and we show our gratitude to Russia for the thousands of Russian soldiers who died in Bulgaria for our liberation. That is why people here, they are very supportive of Russia due to our common history and the cultural heritage, the common cultural heritage that we share. At the same time, in Bulgaria, the other problem is that Bulgarians living in Ukraine, they had been subjected to humiliation and even atrocities in Ukraine for simply being another ethnic group living in this area, and they were forced to conscript to the Ukrainian army to fight in Donetsk against the local population, which is Russian, and they refused to do that. And there were cases in which the Bulgarian flag was desecrated many times. Bulgarians were burned alive in 2014 when our cultural center in Odessa was burned. And during this arson, many Bulgarians died in Ukraine. So here the attitude, given all these facts, the attitude in this conflict is very polarized. At the same time, mainstream media, they are pro-American, pro-NATO, and pro-Ukraine, while ordinary people, they are angry because here all Russian media, Telegram channels, all are banned. So the media presents only the Ukrainian and the NATO and the American point of view, but they don't represent the Russian point of view. Here, all media sources where you can read about the Russian point of view, they are blocked. You can't get any other point of view. And people are angry because they say, leave us to judge ourselves what is happening. We've already heard the Ukrainian, the American, the NATO part of the story. We want to know what the Russian part of the story is, but we don't have access to this information and we are blocked. Why do you prevent us from learning and to watching ourselves what the other side is showing? And so that's why people are very angry. And I think this is a huge mistake, because the more the Russian side is being blocked and banned from the public, the more people start asking themselves, why is that? Anytime when you ban people from or violate the people's rights to be informed, you actually make them people feel that they are oppressed, and there is something that the government, or in this case the European Union, because this is EU decision to block Russia fully in terms of media and information. So people start thinking something is wrong. Why don't they let us know the truth? When I say the truth, I mean that journalism must show all point of views. This is the basic journalistic rule. And in this case, they don't do it. They show only one point of view, but they miss to show the second point of view. That's why people here in Bulgaria are not pleased with this censorship. Also, there was an idea for the government to ban media outlets, Bulgarian media outlets that present all points of views, that don't follow only the official government, American, NATO, and Ukrainian point of view, but that also quote in their reports Russian officials or Russian media. What is this? This is totalitarian. This is I was very young when the communist regime was toppled in Bulgaria. I was a small kid, but I know from my parents that during the communist regime, people hid in their homes and listened secretly Radio Free Europe. So it is the same now. People install VPN to have Russian VPN to be able to read Russian news from Russian media, to be better informed, to know what is actually happening and to judge themselves.
Right. So it's really a reverse of what was happening in the Cold War, where they want to get the real information from Russia. Very interesting. Diliana, thanks so much for joining us. Great work. And again, I think it is a very, very important story, and you've done fantastic work on it. Diliana Gaytandzhieva, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
And so there we go. Another one for the books, another episode of the best damn radio show in the world. Want to thank our guests once again in the first hour, Ian Schilling. And the second hour, you just heard a fantastic interview with Diliana Gaytandzhieva from Bulgaria. Thanks so much to all of our guests today. And of course, to our great co-host, the great Carmine Sabia. We'll be back tomorrow on the best damn radio show in the world, the show that brings you the truth behind the headlines. I'm investigative journalist Lee Stranahan. This has been The Backstory.
listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
Good evening. Welcome to the Critical Hour. We are coming to you from the capital of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., here on Radio Sputnik. I'm your host, political scientist, author, and nationally syndicated columnist, Dr. Wilmer Leon. I'm joined here by my co-host, political analyst, Garland Nixon.
Thank you, Wilmer.
For the next 2 hours, we will explore and analyze the salient news stories that are impacting the global village in which we live. Consortium News has a piece entitled "A Proposed Solution to the Ukraine War." An end to the invasion and war in Ukraine can only be guaranteed if Russia's security is itself guaranteed. Security is largely indivisible. Security for one state requires security for others, says the Los Alamos Study Group. For insight into this, let's turn to our next guest. He's an international geopolitical consultant, global speaker, author, veteran, and former international security analyst in Washington, D.C. He's the founder of Global Perspective Consulting, headquartered in Dallas, Texas, Dr. David Oualaalou. As always, welcome back.
Good to be with you guys.
I'm going to read this opening because I think it is of incredible note. The opening reads, "Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began, what was a regional conflict has become a global hybrid war with ever greater stakes, not least the risk of nuclear war. Perhaps the greatest danger lies in the difference of motives between parties, which is also the fundamental cause of this war. Russia seeks security, while the U.S. and its NATO allies have been using Ukraine to deny that security, to, quote, break Russia, end quote, in Kissinger's 2015 phrase. The U.S. does not want peace unless it be the peace of a conquered Russia. That is why there is no obvious end to the escalations and counter-escalations. The U.S. and NATO see opportunity in the war they have been trying so hard to provoke." That is the Los Alamos Study Group, which I would say their analysis is not to be taken lightly. What say you, Dr. David Oualaalou?
Well, indeed, I'm a little bit familiar with the group. Their assessments usually is sort of right on the mark. I mean, it's subjective and so forth, but let's be realistic. While it sounds great and all that, does it translate to what's taking place on the ground? Because yes, he hits the nail on the head as far as the cause, which most people